Hello, friends and brothers. I'm your elder brother Kiran Roy. I go by the channel name Kiran Roy Life Navigator, which is predominantly a Hindi channel. And I had received lots of requests and lots of comments asking me to create content in English to cater to my overseas audience. So today is my first video in that regard. So today I'll be addressing the point. If I don't marry, who will take care of me during my old age? Because I had received lots of comments in my Instagram reels asking me the same question, that marriage is definitely a losing proposition at today's times. So if I don't marry, who is it that is going to take care of me during my most vulnerable time of my life, which is the old age? So let me tell you, I live in Union Park, Chembur, which is one of the most poshest locations in Mumbai. It is located in central Mumbai. So all the residents, majority, in fact, all of them are all retired industrialists, artists. There are lots of Bollywood people also staying here. So all are like rich CEOs, retired, of course. All of them stays here. And one thing common with all of them is that all of their children are working abroad. None of their children are staying with them. And 70% of all the aged men, so their wives have expired, say around 3 years, 5 years, 7 years before. 70% of them are staying alone, basically. And the 30% which are remaining, even with them, their children are not staying with them because they are working abroad. Nobody is staying with none of their children, because I go for my morning runs each and every day. So while I'm at the fag end of my run, it is their time to start their morning walks. So since the past 3 to 4 years, I've been exchanging pleasantries with them. I've been telling them good morning, Jai Janendra to each one of them. So because that's the end of my run, so I do make it a point to speak to each and every one of them, inquiring about their well-being, how their life is shaping up, whether they have any problems or issues, and I try to help them regarding any issues if they might be having. Many of them are my students as well. They take guitar lessons from me. So one thing common which I've noticed, which all of them, is that none of their children are staying with them because all of them are working abroad. And as for the spouses, 70% of them have lost their spouse on an average of 3 to 5 years before. So the bottom line is, none of them has anybody to look after them from their family. Though, since all of them are financially well off, each and every one of them has a team of caretakers. In fact, some of them whom I know, even when they come for a walk, they have a maid accompanying him. They have a guy accompanying him, a servant basically. So what I mean to say is, each one of them are having no issues in living their old age without the help of their children or even spouse. Why? Because they had made themselves financially independent, so as to afford maids, caretakers who can cook for them, who can look after them, who can basically look after each and every aspect of their lives, including walking, which I just mentioned. Because there are a few old age men who cannot walk without support. So they have a caretaker who always accompanies them for their morning walks as well. So my question now, since you guys asked me a question, my question to you is, suppose if you marry with the intention of somebody taking care of you during your old age, you marry with the expectation that your wife is going to take care of you when you grow old. So tell me, what is the guarantee that your wife is going to outlive you, that she is going to live beyond you? Because as per what I have seen, 70% of the old age men whom I have encountered, they have lost their spouse, they have lost their wives. So what's the guarantee that your wife is going to outlive you? That is my question number one. My question number two to you is, at today's times, when your wives are not even bothered about you during your young age, then what makes you think that your wife is going to look after you when you grow old? So can you please answer this question of mine? What is the guarantee that your wife will look after you when you grow old? Because from what you forget me, even from what you guys are able to see, that your wives doesn't take care of you even now when both of you are at the peak of your youth. Your wife is least bothered. If you ask her to make me a turkey sandwich, you very well know what's going to be her reply. She will have all the time in the world to do each and everything. She will be at her obedient best to listen to her boss. Even if her boss asks her to report to work at 5 a.m., she will do so without battling an eyelid. But if you ask your wife for just a small favor, as small as asking for a cup of tea, do you think she is going to respond very much nicely? I'm sure everybody has encountered this, that they are not going to be treated very nicely. It's not, your request is not going to be taken down very favorably. Isn't that the case with each and every one of you? So now itself that's the case. So what makes you feel that when you grow old, your wife is going to look after you? And what's the guarantee that your marriage is going to last as long as until you grow old? What makes you feel that you might not get divorced way before that? What makes you feel that you're going to go all the way so as to reach such a level wherein your wife is going to help you when you grow old? What makes you feel so? At today's times, be it in the western part of the globe, be it in the subcontinent, divorce rates are at an all-time high. You all are aware of that. Still, what makes you believe that yours is going to be the only case which is not going to end up in a divorce, which is the trend nowadays in each and every corner of the globe? What makes you feel that your wife is basically what I mean to ask you is, what gives you the guarantee that your marriage is not going to end up in a divorce? And the biggest question which I'm asking you now is, suppose if you marry somebody, she will be roughly 3 years, 4 years, max 5 years younger to you. So when you grow old, what makes you feel your wife is not going to grow old as well? Suppose when you reach 80 years, for example, your wife would be 75 herself, which is at the peak of old age by default. By default, even she is going to grow old with you. In fact, even she will be having lots of health ailments, lots of health problems, nursing home needs, lots of problems she would be encountering. So what makes you think that when you are old, she will be healthy enough to look after you? Isn't it the most foolish thinking ever? See, if you wish to get married, if you love somebody, I have no issues regarding that. Suppose if all the parameters are falling in place, if you're ticking all the right boxes regarding your spouse when you're young, most importantly, if you're in love with somebody, though I don't believe in love, it is an attachment basically, and due to attachment, you grow in expectations. There is nothing called love. It is just that feeling of being in love is just a chemical reaction which happens during the first year of the marriage or first year of the relationship. After that, it's in a completely downward spiral and everything vanishes 1.5 years post your marriage or post your relationship. But still, if you wish to call it love, I'm giving you the benefit of doubt. All right, you can call it love. But suppose if you are having very good respect in place, mutual respect in place, if you are indeed in love, as you call it, if everything is falling in place, if that's the case, and if you are marrying, I have nothing against it. But in majority of the cases, that's not the case. Majority of the people all around the subcontinent, even in the western parts of the globe, I've seen that majority get married only to fulfill their sexual needs, and after that a little bit for companionship. But majority people are only after sex because that's what they are after. But suppose even if you get married to a person with whom you have very good physical compatibility, emotional compatibility, you get married. Agreed. I fully agree with that. But when you reach that ripe old age of 80 years, your wife would be 75 at that time. And she would be suffering from a host of illnesses. More often than not, it's you who would be having to taking care of her rather than the other way around, which you guys are expecting. So when she herself can't take care of herself, what makes you think that she is going to be your fixed deposit during your old age? Because that's the majority question which has been asked to me, that if I don't marry, who will look after me during my old age? As if it's a sure shot guarantee for you that your wife is going to remain young forever and she is going to look after you during your old age. It doesn't work that way, dude. So if you ask me what's the solution, the solution is the point with which I started my today's video. The examples which I gave you of the residents, of the senior citizen residents who meet me, whom I meet every day during running. So they had made themselves financially so independent that they don't have to depend on their children. Because I've been asking them, then how often do you meet your children? They say it's been 3 years that they visited me. Some say it's been 5 years I haven't even seen my own child because they're busy working. Once in 3-4 months they call me. So none of them are in touch with their parents, majority of them, from what I have seen. So they're not depending on their children, is what I mean to tell you. They are completely self-sufficient. They have a life of their own. They go for morning, evening walks. They have a social place of their age group. They have a social system in place. They are quite happy. They play golf, some of them whom I personally know, because the backside which you're seeing is the Bombay Presidency Golf Course, which is amongst the biggest golf course in entire Asia. So since we stay just adjacent to it, and since majority of them are industrialists, they have the golf course membership. Majority of them socialize, play golf. They have a healthy social system in place, which I've personally seen. So if you ask me, the answer lies in the same thing which I'm mentioning, that having a healthy social network is of paramount importance of the same age group, because that healthy social network keeps your mind sane basically. And having an investment is going to be your best bet, because with a healthy recurring investment you can have a recurring income with which you can afford maids and the people who can look after you during your old age, rather than you depending on your children and your spouse. Because depending on your wife is the biggest disgrace that you're doing to yourself, and the biggest foolishness which you're doing with yourself, because it does not work that way. Because when we grew up, we saw our mothers, our grandmothers looking after our grandfathers, even for that matter, our mothers looking after our father. But once that generation was gone, that entire system has gone kaput now. That system does not exist in today's times. Today's times, all are independent, be it women, be it men. Even children are becoming independent at a very tender age. 13, 14, 15, 16, they are all independent. They know what they would be doing. All are busy in their own lives. They have a life of their own. So if you guys are still expecting that your marriage is going to be the safest bet for you during your old age, you are living in a fool's paradise, because you are living in an illusion that your wife, that your children are going to be your fixed deposit for your old age. It doesn't work that way, dude. It's a completely different ballgame altogether at today's times. During today's times, the only thing that work is, see, as I said, I'm not against marriage completely, as in I'm not saying you don't have to marry, because as I said, if all the parameters are falling in place, if you've known that person for 2 years, 3 years, if you know the in and out of her family, you know her background, you know about her past body counts, you're satisfied with each and every aspect, I have no issues with you getting married. But I'm talking about the vast majority who are not fortunate enough to have stumbled upon their life partners. They are the ones who are at risk, because there's no guarantee that their marriage is going to last that long. Because at today's times, within 1 or 2 years, because I am a life navigator, I've been counseling people since the past 20 years. Since the past 10 years, I've been counseling professionally, and prior to that, for first 10 years, I'd been doing it unprofessionally, as in I wouldn't charge anything for that. So from that, I have seen that during today's times, the system of marriage, the social fabric, the marriage fabric has gone for a toss. Because what I have seen during the first year, max to max the first 2 years of a marriage, things are still okay. That's largely due to the chemical reaction which I spoke about. So due to that, they can compromise on various levels. But once that chemical reaction dies down, once that chemical locha, which we call it, once that dies down, then the real trouble begins. That is the start of all problems, because that is the time the problems start surfacing. It starts coming in the surface, which needs to be addressed. But many don't address it, which results in full blown combat, full blown quarrel, full blown fights. And from there on, it's a downward spiral right throughout, even resulting in divorce. Because these days people are not thinking twice before applying for divorce. For even a small thing, people don't think twice before applying for a divorce. So chances are very less under that scenario that your wife is going to live with you when you reach that tender age of 75 or 80. So that's not the safest bet which you guys are thinking it would be. So the safest bet, as I was talking about, coming back to that point, is having a strong investment, because it's only your investment which is going to look after you during your bad times. I'll give you an example. During the lockdown which happened a few years before, that was the time everybody came to know that it is only the investment which will be your best friend during times such as that. During times of pandemic, it was only one savings and investment which saved them. Otherwise, so many families I have seen going downhill just because they had no savings. And it's during this lockdown itself, one more thing came in front of me, that immediately once the lockdown was lifted, majority of the couples went and applied for divorce, because that was the time husband was at homes throughout the day. Both husband and wife were living under the same roof, under the same room for that matter, for months together. And that's what created that rift. Because under normal circumstances, ideally women always want their men to go out to earn their bread. They prefer their women prefer their man going out in the morning, coming back in the evenings. But that was not the case during the lockdown. They both were confined under one same room or one same house for months at end. So that was the biggest cause of divorce which happened right thereafter. So you can imagine, once you decide that I'm marrying, and you're under the impression that it's your wife who's going to look after you during your old age, you're actually living in a fool's paradise. Because if you actually need a backup, then it's going to be your investments which is going to be your backup. Because through your investments, you can get a monthly income when you reach that age. And with that monthly income, you can spend on caretakers. You can spend on hiring a maid. You can spend on hiring a nurse for that matter, who can look after each and every need of yours, even when you are unable to do it yourself, even when you are dependent on somebody. That time it's your maids who can do a great job, because that's what I'm personally seeing. And many people might ask me, yeah, I belong to a poor family right now, so how can I afford a maid? How can I afford a nurse? Many people would ask me, because I had made a reel on this subject and many people had commented on this question. So let me ask you today, what would be your age roughly? 27, 28 on an average? And when will you get old? 75? So there are 50 more years between now and the time you turn old. What makes you think that if you're poor right now, that you're going to remain poor right throughout your life? This kind of negative thinking you have, and you're asking me that we should get married to look after somebody, when you yourself don't have confidence to uplift yourself, that too in 50 years time, then what makes you think that we'll be getting some wife who will look after you? No wife likes a weak person like you. Even if that wife is, even if that girl is poor, she will never select a weak person like you. A wife will, a woman for that matter, always selects a person, even if they are poor. But if they have that passion to uplift himself, to change his present state, that's good enough for a woman. They don't directly select money. But if they see that the man is capable of earning and to uplift our present status, she will gladly accept you as her life partner. But looking at you, anybody will get that impression that you are never going to uplift your present scenario. So under that circumstances, even by default, nobody is going to marry you. So even if you are expecting that your wife is going to take care of you, you won't land up with a wife at the first place itself due to your weak mindset. because now you are poor and you are expecting yourself to remain poor even 50 years down the line. Whereas, what would a winner had told me? That yes, I will work hard, I will build up, I will work on myself, I will work on my career, I will grind myself, I will hustle, and I will make myself and I will bring myself to such a limit that even if somebody loves me, awesome. Even if I don't find a girl, I will have enough investments to look after myself. That is how a winner would be talking like. But what these guys are commenting that I'm poor today, I'm going to remain poor right throughout my life, which is the worst mental makeup, I would say, the worst thing a person can talk about oneself. Because one must have this much confidence one must have that I'm going to uplift myself. I'm going to be better than what I'm right now. So this point does not apply to such weaklings because they are not going to land up with a wife even at the first place. As for the rest, if you land up with a good person as your spouse, awesome. I have nothing against that. But if no, but that's not the end of the world, is what I'm trying to tell you. Even if you're not fortunate enough to find somebody good, like me, like in my case, I was not fortunate enough, but I give a damn to it. Big deal. I'll be working hard. I have made up good savings. I have made good investments, which in itself is going to be my fixed deposit during my old age. Because with that, I can ensure the best medical facility, best medical care, the best maid service, the best nurse service I can afford for myself. And that is what it is. And even in the cases of people having a wife, for example, my father is 80 years old. My mother was 72. But last year, my mom expired. So now my father is all by himself. Of course, he has me looking after him. But how many people can boast of such a thing that their son looks after them? Because all are not like me. I had lots of options to live alone because in Mumbai itself we have 4 flats. My father has a flat in US as well. My brother stays there. So I had all the options to get settled wherever I wanted. But I still chose to stay with my father because I wanted to give back to him what he gave me. Because whatever I am today is due to my father. So due to that reason, I had decided long back that I won't leave my father. But my question is, how many people think like me? Majority don't think like that. Majority kids, once they reach an independent stage, they straight away fly. They are not bothered about their parents, because I'm saying from my personal experience of the people, of the elder senior citizens whom I meet every day, none of their children are in touch with them. All of them are busy in their own lives, and that's the case in majority of the people. That is the case with majority of the people right throughout the world. I'm not talking about one specific territory. So the best bet during these scenario, during these circumstances, is you make your savings. From now only, start building up your savings. No need to spend on unnecessary things. Don't spend on that iPhone which is not required. Rather, invest that money. You'll be saving a huge amount, because even mid-range phones gives you almost the same facilities which you get in the high-end gadgets. Why do you want to spend on an high-end gadget? Save that money, put it in some sort of safe investment, because it is that investment which is going to pay rich dividends for you during your old age. There is nothing else which can take care of you. I mean, there is nothing better to look after you during your old age than investments. So the idea is, when you are young, try to increase your income. There's no two ways about it. But at the same time, try to decrease your expenditure, because it is the waste expenditure which is your biggest bane. Your biggest problem is the expenditure. So you have to try to learn how to control the expenditure which is not required. For example, when you need a car, you just need a car. You don't need a luxury on wheels, because even a normal car will do the same job. So why do you want to spend something on that luxury which is going to depreciate any which ways? So it makes no sense. My father is a big industrialist, for those who are not aware, but in spite of that, he had never splurged on luxury vehicles, and neither did I, because that values was passed on to me by my father, that we don't need something which will depreciate in value. We should invest in properties. That's why we have lots of properties in Mumbai, even in USA. We should invest in properties whose value will increase, if nothing else. We should invest on our health, because that is our safest FD, fixed deposit, when we grow old. So these are the things we should be investing on. So rather than splurging on the things which you don't need, completely save that money and keep yourself safe for your old age. That is what I would wholly recommend and advise. So, in a nutshell, if you ask me who will look after me when I grow old and if I don't marry, it is going to be you yourself with the help of your investments. So, completely make up your mind. As I said, I'm not asking you to completely destroy the idea of you getting married. But suppose if you are unable to get married, then there is nothing to run yourself. There's nothing to run yourself down. Don't think that that's the end of the road for you. In fact, there are lots of benefits if you don't get married, which I will be addressing in my upcoming videos. But for today, I can tell you safely that you are not losing out on anything if you don't marry. There are thousands and lakhs of people who are living that life, including the people whom I encounter every day, and to a certain extent, even my own father, because ultimately he's of his own and with the help of our maids. Because though I am living with him, but still he doesn't have his wife, so more or less he's of his own, I would say. So, but majority of the people, their children are not living with them the way I am. So don't expect your children to live with you if you get married. So that's not the case, because in like majority of the cases that I'm encountering, none of their children are living with them, and even their wives, as I said, have left them because they are divorced, either they were divorced long back, or either they have expired. Lots of factors. So it's the percentage is very less who have their spouse living with them during their old age. Because as I said, even my father doesn't have that thing. Even my mom has expired last year. So never ever think that that's the end of the road for you if you don't get married. In fact, there are lots and lots of benefits which I will be addressing in my upcoming videos. So for today, I sign off. For any doubts, feel free to comment me. I am Kiran Roy. I am a life navigator from Mumbai. In my upcoming videos, you will come to know more about me. So for today, I sign off. Kiran Roy. Jai Hind.